Hey Scott, why don't you come on up and do Washoe County RTC?
Well, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Scott Gibson, and I work with the RTC of Washoe County. Thanks for having me this morning, and I apologize to some of you who've seen these slides before. This is kind of become a greatest hits thing at these. Again, we're the Regional Transportation Commission, so we're the MPO for the cities of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County. So we do the long-range transportation plan. We also run the bus system, and so we're interested in modal split and trip reduction issues. And but we're kind of unusual in that we have an engineering and construction division to where we take the increment of the fuel tax that I'll talk about in a second and hire the consultants and actually oversee, hire the consultants to design and manage the construction. So we have project managers that run those, project managers in-house that contract all of that stuff out. And we manage our road network is more of the regional roads. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit, but one of our important things is funding, and we have our voters not once but twice, once in 2002 and again in 2008, voted to index our local fuel tax. And for the first time we did it, it was to the consumer price index, which was flat. There wasn't any inflation, and we had huge construction inflation, and so we did it again to the producer price index that more closely tracks construction inflation. And so we index the local county fuel tax, and then we index the state fuel tax, and we keep that increment for ourselves. We index the federal fuel tax, that 18 cents a gallon. We index that, and we keep that increment. That tax, that fuel tax or user fee, as Jim likes to call it, is hasn't been increased since 1993. And then we also index the diesel fuel tax for diesel that's sold in our county. And that hasn't been raised since 1983. And we keep that increment as well. And so anyhow, we're pretty well funded. And as you've seen lately, you know, so in our county, our gas, our gasoline per gallon is 40 cents or so higher than a neighboring county. Fortunately, they're far enough away that doesn't provide anybody an incentive, very many people an incentive to go that way. But you know, we've seen these kind of 40, 25, 30, 40 cent fluctuations over 6 months just regularly. But our taxpayers actually get the benefit of that instead of just the oil companies. The regional roads, we have about 1,500 lane miles of a 5,000 lane mile road network. We manage the principal arterials and more higher volume roadways. Our three agencies, we have kind of the integrated elements of the program. One of the other good parts about my job is that I don't own any of these roads. They all belong to our local agencies. We just oversee the work that happens on them. And we have a program that allows them to, as project selection and how we prioritize that, we get condition surveys. All of the agencies run micropaver, and we insist that their ratings can't be more than 3 years old, which is really key, so we have good current data to make decisions on. We all came to an agreement on uniform regional road categories, what qualifies as arterials and collectors and that type of thing. And then we also have came to agreement on what kind of treatments they would allow to be used on their roads. And our main things are slurry seals, microsurfacing, cape seals, crack sealing, thin overlays, and patching. And then we also do the rehab reconstruction type stuff. We have an annual budget for the pavement preservation, and in our program, rehab reconstruction falls under pavement preservation as well as preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance. But the preventive maintenance is about 1/3 of the budget, and again, that hits roads that have a PCI above 56 and less than 5% structural distress. Overall, our network condition, after having done this for a while, we have on our regional roads, we're up around 88% in good condition. our network PCI, again, and that idea of quality and what kind of constitutes quality. The quality of our network is what we kind of strive for as one of the goals of the program. And so we're really fortunate in doing this. Our 8 local agencies kind of piggyback on some of our stuff. Their network is much bigger than ours. Most of the needs are in their areas. But they have but again, they're local residential roads, and so it doesn't take as much to take care of those roadways. And again, in comparison, the idea that good roads are cheaper, so most of our network is in that 25, 30 cents a square foot. I guess you guys would say $3 or $4 a square yard cost category in preventive maintenance mode, whereas theirs is a brother agency, the Red, over in California, where almost half their network is in poor condition. To dig themselves out of that hole is going to take a whole lot of money because they're up in the $80, $90, $100 a square yard reconstruction area. Again, when you start talking about the condition of your network and what the conversation is about and telling your story, a pothole is a fundamental unit of political currency. So if you've got really a tough network and you're trying to do other things like preventive maintenance and keeping good roads good, it's harder to have that conversation when the roof is leaking on your citizens, so to speak. We have kind of equity in our system in terms of we're exceeding our performance goals for what the condition of our network needs to be. We just raised it from 70 to 80 in our last regional transportation plan, but we're still above that. But we were able to step out of the program for a couple of years and use that $18 million a year to leverage a Tiger grant to fund bus rapid transit and a whole corridor improvement on the traditional Main Street corridor, Highway 40 that used to be the Lincoln Highway, through our area, and do a bus rapid transit and widen sidewalks and a big, huge complete street project. And that allowed us to kind of leverage that Tiger grant. And now we're just starting a Virginia Street project that's the same thing, that's going to recondition and rehabilitate a whole corridor through the center of town, and again, where we have telephone poles in the middle of sidewalks and that kind of thing. And so redoing the pavement as well as all these complete street amenities. And so again, having good condition pavement allows us to have that conversation and achieve some of our other agency goals. The Type 3 microsurface is kind of our workhorse. So this year we're doing like 300 lane miles of that stuff, because we're kind of catching up after stepping out of the program for a couple years. And again, a key aspect of that is what that actually does for your network, and doing it on a regular basis. This is our theoretical pavement performance curve and how preventive maintenance is supposed to work. I always like to show this slide. This came out of Washoe County. We have a pavement engineer there he's going to retire in about a month and a half. But he's been there for 30 years, and he was always a big micropaver guy and a big power user of micropaver. And when he first joined, when he started getting into pavement management and that type of stuff, he ran his own family of curves, of course. And this, if you can see it, it's a little dark. This was his pavement performance curve. This is what a real one looks like for his arterial pavements in 1993. He got very aggressive about doing chip seals on his county roads, and whenever Intermountain would come and say, hey, we've got this new stuff called polymer modified slurry seals, he'd try that, and he'd go, well, yeah, you can go put it on this road over here, and got very aggressive about doing good pavement preservation and preventive maintenance. And so when we kind of took over funding for his roads, he was saying, you have to use my family curves. And we went out and looked at his roads, and you go, your family curves say this has got a PCI of 40, and if I'm looking at it, I think it's got a PCI of 80. So we need to kind of, you need to adjust your curves. And so he went back and looked at it. And in 2012, this was his performance curve in 2012. So essentially, after 20 years of good pavement preservation, he doubled the performance life of his network, getting to a threshold of 50. So this is it's rare to find somebody who has that length of continuity over the way their materials work, and it's kind of anecdotal, and there's a whole ton of stuff that's going on in here. His pavement performance was saying he needed $5 million, and actually he really only needed $3 million, but the county only gave him $3 million, and so he was actually adequately funded to do his program and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff happening on these two curves, but it's very instructive what good pavement preservation can do for you. And then again, I can't get away with this without talking about bicycles and multimodal. And this is a 4-lane divided roadway in our community. No bike facilities, kind of higher speeds, not poor pedestrian stuff, lots of driveways. So these are kind of high crash locations. And so we've started doing a lot of road diets in our community. A road that came up on our slurry seal program and pavement preservation program, and now you've gone for 4 lanes, taken 1 lane and given it over to bicycles. Now the guy in the blue car is going the 30 miles an hour and kind of controlling the speed limit. You get the left turners out of the way. The crossing distance, pedestrians aren't crossing 2 live lanes, or only crossing 2 live lanes of traffic instead of 4. And we're actually doing a couple of these that I've been trying to get done for since 2013 here this month, which is kind of exciting. But this gets the conversation into areas of safety and complete streets and multimodal stuff that a lot of politicians and decision makers are more interested in talking about rather than pavement infrastructure, and their eyes kind of roll up in their head and they kind of shut down a little bit. But we've done before and after studies on these things, and we get these 50% reductions in crashes in these corridors. And the reason that works is because the places in space for objects to collide with each other are fewer. The conflict points drop by a half or a third, depending on whether you're at intersections and that kind of thing. And so it doesn't matter if you're old or under the influence or full of teenage hormones. There's just less places in space for objects to collide with each other. And so you get these really dramatic improvements in safety. And that's a really key part of our program. And again, so we're improving the quality of our community as well as the quality of our network overall.
The way you index your gas taxes and fuel taxes, I should say, how do you find that your retail price of fuel compares to either a national average or a state average? Are you X percentage higher than most people?
That's a good question, and I'm just I think there was just some talk about fuel being higher this summer than it has been in a long time. And does anybody know right off, it was like 246 or something, I think was the average nationally. We are at about 340, 350, I think. And I think in our neighboring county it's like 3, but California West Coast stuff is kind of higher. So I think we're 50-60% higher than the national average. But again, just West Coast and California have got higher fuel costs generally anyhow.
One other thing I didn't catch, and you may have said it in your talk, how many either center lane miles or
our network overall in the community, we have like 5,000 lane miles on the regional transportation plan roadways, which are defined in our regional transportation plan and are the arterials and signalized higher volume roads. There's 1,500 lane miles, so about a third of the network is what we're responsible for. Okay, well, thank you very much.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.